Hi, Robert Baldwin here, and I'd like to time travel with you. You don't have to get in a time capsule, you're already in it. We're going to travel to the time of Frederic Chopin, a great composer for the piano who lived 200 years ago. But we're not going to the past, we're going to the future, Marty, and what you learn could be life-changing, whether you're a classical pianist, getting your music degree, or you just enjoy listening to music from that era. It's all about how the need for speed is an addiction that makes music less meaningful and creates roadblocks for musicians. First, I've got an ask. On this channel, I share musical ideas that are not in the mainstream of piano lessons, but they should be. So when you find one of my videos that resonates with you, please share it. Thank you. Now I want to set the stage for this video. I'm going to ask you to time travel with me. We're going to go 4 minutes into the future, and you're going to go through the next 4 minutes regardless. So the question is really how you go through it and how you feel when you arrive. If you keep watching, I think we'll arrive at the other side feeling energized. That's my intention anyway. You might skip ahead and bypass the next 4 minutes of this video. If you do, you're going to bypass my point. Up next is a 4-minute video performance of me performing the Revolutionary Étude by Frederic Chopin. It's a pretty famous piece of Romantic era piano repertoire, and listening to the whole thing will change you. Time is at the center of this discussion. In the next 4 minutes, allow your thoughts to intermingle with mine as I'm performing. And both of our sets of feelings will exist with Chopin's, passed down through nearly 200 years to us today through the score that he wrote down and had published. Now I'm going to use the Revolutionary Étude to make a revolutionary point, and that's that you should not be breaking yourself trying to get a little more speed from your repertoire pieces. And if you're a music listener, there's a lot going on in music to listen for, other than velocity and the athletic nature of a performance. Also, I have a treat for you if you stick around to the end of the video. There's a problem here that we need to discuss. If you've never heard the Revolutionary Étude before, hopefully that sounded like a competent performance, because it was. If you're familiar with the piece, you might have noticed that my performance was a good deal slower paced than any performance you might have heard live or in a recording. And if you're a performer who studied this piece, you might be thinking that this performance was nowhere near the tempo that Chopin indicated in the score. In fact, you might be thinking it's closer to half speed than full speed, the kind of tempo that might be acceptable in a practice room, but definitely not the concert hall. 4 years ago, I would have agreed with you. In fact, I found this tweet, they were still called tweets then, from when I first started learning to play the Revolutionary Étude a few years ago. 4 days to learn the Revolutionary Étude up to half speed. Now 4 years to learn the other half of the speed. This is a common feeling among music students, that it might take days or weeks to learn the notes and years to get it up to speed. But this sentiment about taking years to get from half speed to full speed would turn out to be prescient and the basis for the rest of this video. Because since then I've learned about something called Whole Beat Metronome Practice. Whole Beat Metronome Practice, or WBMP, maintains that composers in the classical and romantic eras often imagined or intended their music to be played exactly half as fast as the way modern performers think. And for a few very vocal opponents, this idea is controversial. The controversy comes from the way composers from that time communicated to performers the speed they wanted their pieces performed. For a piece like the Revolutionary Étude, you might open your early edition and see a marking something like this at the beginning. For any piece written in the last 100 years or so, that metronome marking is very clear. If your music says the quarter note equals 160 beats per minute, it can only mean one thing. You set your metronome to 160, and every tick represents the amount of time it takes you to get from one quarter note's worth of time to the next quarter note. Tick, 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 tick. That's called a single beat metronome reading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and do day, do day, do day, do day. But for a lot of music from the 18th and 19th centuries, there's only one slight problem. That interpretation results in performance speeds that are literally unplayable by human hands. And it's true for all sorts of music from this time period, from piano pieces like the Revolutionary Étude to the symphonies of Beethoven. Just listen to what I mean. I can do a couple of measures at that speed, but I guarantee you I'm not thinking about the nuances of phrasing and articulation in the score. No one could be, unless you're Cyprian Katsaris. I'm just hanging on for dear life. And yet most modern performances aspire to those unplayable speeds. Conservatory students and even high schoolers spend countless hours practicing, believing that when they're good enough, they'll be able to play the way they think Chopin wanted them to, and often hurting themselves in the process, physically and mentally. The score is marked allegro con fuoco, fast with fire. But many people have come to mistake fire for speed, even though there are more and better ways to be passionate. So how can that be that these composers wanted us to play their music at such unrealistic, unmusical speeds? Well, it's possible that 19th century musicians were listening to music with different ears than the ones we in the 21st century have become accustomed to. In fact, it's hard to imagine that they weren't. What WBMP proposes is that when composers used a metronome mark like this, they didn't intend for you to take every click as the time of a quarter note. Instead, the click and the return of the pendulum would be the time of a quarter note, like this. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and do day, do day, do day, do day. other words, modern performers are trying to reach performance speeds exactly twice as fast as composers from this time were thinking. This realization elegantly solves the problem of those unplayable performance speeds, because those speeds are not what composers were imagining when they put pen to paper to write their masterworks. And I imagine to most of my viewers, this seems like a sensible reevaluation of classical and Romantic era performance practice. But to some musicians who take it as a point of pride that they can play a piece faster than someone else, it's a real insult to suggest that maybe there are reasons not to. And WBMP is not something that's currently taught in piano lessons or conservatories. For some of these music students, this isn't a revolutionary change in perspective, it's heresy. At this point of the video, I'm going to give you the chance to make some observations of your own. My performance of the Revolutionary Étude that we watched a few minutes ago is pretty close to a whole beat conception of that piece, just a smidge faster. Now I'm going to show you a rehearsal video of me playing the Revolutionary Étude a few years ago at a speed that's closer to a single beat interpretation. So the version from a few minutes ago is about 50% the speed of single beat. What I'm about to show you is closer to 75% the speed of single beat. This is on par with some of the best modern performers like Evgeny Kissin or Valentina Lisitsa. Because of the speed and difficulty, this is a much less clean performance with a lot more ebb and flow in the consistency of the rhythm. You should know this kind of ebb and flow is explicitly against Chopin's performance instructions. Chopin tells performers to keep strict time with their left hand. But as we approach 75% of single beat, it becomes impossible even for the best performers to maintain strict time. We have to slow down for the hard parts. Take a listen. And I'm sorry for the audio quality. I recorded this a few years ago and I didn't know I'd use it in a YouTube video. Again, I'm posting the entire piece because I think it's impossible to get a feel for how speed choice affects you just from excerpts. But this performance is more than a full minute shorter than the previous one. Sorry, that ending has never made sense to me for my entire life. It just sounds weird. In single beat, it sounds uncertain, weak, teetering on the edge of a cliff, ending on a microbeat. Like what just happened? Here, I'll show you what I mean. But it does make sense in whole beat. In whole beat, there's a finality to it, driving the nails in the coffin, ending on a macro beat, like this. Makes perfect sense. But as a matter of fact, there are several characteristics of the faster performance that I think are at odds with what's written in the score for this piece and others. I'm thinking of making a separate video about those things. If you'd like to see that, please let me know in the comments. If you're like me, when I hear a fast performance like this, I'm absolutely excited by the performance and the performer. What I'm not thinking about is the composition, because at these speeds, there's no time to reflect on things like melody and harmony and rhythm. Instead, we're wondering if the performer can hang on to the end. It's kind of like watching a NASCAR race for the wrecks. But is that really the aesthetic Chopin had in mind? I don't think it is. It's kind of like listening to an essay by James Baldwin or a poem by Mary Oliver, compared to the aesthetic of someone like Eminem, where the value is on the number of words per minute more than the complexity of the message. The more we approach the warp speed of a single beat interpretation, the less the performance is about the music, the more it's about the performer. Speed becomes a one-dimensional obsession, even though fast is not an interpretation. When the speed of transmission is valued more, the quality and content of the message is valued less. In some videos of performances at WBMP speeds, there will be criticisms in the comments that seem like bullying to me, saying that's a tempo for the practice room, not for performance. Or saying that whole beat is a conspiracy theory, like flat earth. But I think it's more like WBMP is heliocentrism, a realization whose time has finally come. A simple change in perspective that the tempo beat note is representing a macro beat, while the click of the metronome gives a micro beat. And is it really so outlandish to think composers thought of metronome marks in this way? After all, this is how frequencies are measured, from crest to crest, not crest to trough. And this is how physicists count pendulum swings. To there and back is one swing, not two. And the metronome is literally an inverted pendulum. Or in simpler terms, think of an Olympic swimmer. It's not a lap when they reach the other side of the pool, it's a lap when they come back. And every time I visit my mom in Mississippi, we always go for walks on the dead-end street I grew up on, and we count laps. It's a lap when we get back to the house, not when we reach the dead end. So how could it be that all of a sudden people were playing music twice as fast as they used to? Wouldn't somebody have noticed? Well, no. It's in human nature to get faster at doing things we understand. Right now, you might be watching this video at 2 times speed. Basically, single beat is 2 times speed for classical music. The music of Beethoven or Chopin or Liszt was revolutionary in their times in terms of harmony, rhythm, melody, and technique. So it's only natural that as the language of each composer filters into the mainstream over the course of decades and centuries, it becomes possible to perform their music faster than when it was brand new. That process is normal, and it continues today. When Rachmaninoff was composing in the last century, his music was reserved for a handful of the most advanced musicians. Now 12-year-olds play it. It used to be thought that running a 4-minute mile was an unsurpassable barrier. But that barrier was broken in the 1950s, and now thousands of people have run a mile in less than 4 minutes, some beating that time by more than 16 seconds. How fast do you think they ran the mile in artistic circles in Vienna in 1800? And does it make sense that composers who rely on publishing their works for income would be selling music that literally no one can play. It's also in the nature of music concerts in capitalist society that performers have to do things to set themselves apart in order to sell tickets or gain patrons. And technical facility is one way to do that. So when you buy a ticket to a concert where someone is performing the Revolutionary Étude years after it was written, it stands to reason that you're going to hear a performance that's on the faster side. This was only exacerbated as recordings became available in the mid-20th century. First of all, only the most technically agile pianists were getting record deals, and there was also the issue that there was limited time available on each side of a record. So performers would have to play faster to get more music on a record that would presumably make the record more attractive for consumers to purchase. So the idea is that this shift in interpreting metronome marks didn't happen all of a sudden. It happened gradually in the first half of the 20th century as more and more professional performances and then recordings were starting to land around 150% of the whole beat tempo. As performers kept getting further from composers' original ideas, the single beat interpretation came to be the norm, as a subconscious justification for what ultimately amounted to playing at ridiculous and unmusical speeds. Keep in mind, true single beat performances of 200% of the whole beat interpretation are not a thing that happens for most pieces, even among the best of the best musicians in the world. And that's where things remain to this day, with competition and recital performances for fast pieces hovering at around 150% of whole beat, which is about as fast as humanly possible. Learning music, experiencing music fully, requires an integration of reflection and creation. Being music requires listening forward. That's creating music in your mind as you hear it. And listening backward. That means reflecting on what you just heard. In the same way that a functional, sustainable society is mindful of its forward progress while nurturing those who are coming up. The single beat performance trend results in an oppression of expression because it denies you the opportunity to reflect. It's Michael Bay, not Chloe Zhao. It tells students that the score is sacrosanct except in the critical domain of tempo, where you'll never be able to play what the composer intended. Always trying, never doing. It's gatekeeping. In the same way that putting reading instruction before audiation keeps music out of reach for beginning students, single beat keeps music out of reach for advanced students. No one wins, and we become a less musical culture, needlessly losing the expressive voices of students who could otherwise have so much to say musically. And it makes sense because the musician job market is so small, we can't afford for every student to become skillful. We turn music into something to be consumed, not reflected on. And our failure to reflect carries with it an inability to create a future that makes any kind of sense. In 25 years, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Can you imagine? I'm really asking, do you have the ability to imagine? Because without that, we have no past, no future. We're only left with a crushing now. And saying WBMP is a conspiracy theory, it's been debunked, is the least imaginative possible response to this video because it doesn't address my argument. My argument is that music is an expressive, creative act. Whether you're composing your own new music no one has ever heard before, or you're creating a performance of a piece like the Revolutionary Étude. If there's no creation, there's no music. And spending years trying to reach speeds no one will ever achieve destroys creativity. Music is made worse, not better. So if WBMP has been debunked, and it hasn't, if that's what Chopin really wanted, then count me out. I'd rather hear my 6-year-old students improvising than one more Revolutionary Étude that's everything but revolutionary. The physical struggle is not the existential struggle Romantic and classical composers were going for. It's not dramatic, it's just sad. Composing and expressing can be a great struggle sometimes. This music isn't supposed to be a struggle to listen to. In this video, I've mostly avoided trying to draw historical certainties about what Chopin and Beethoven were thinking. Nobody can know that. Instead, I've focused on the indisputable real-world modern implications of these two different ways of performing and listening to music. If you'd like to dive more into the scholarly support for WBMP, check out the YouTube channel Authentic Sound. Wim Winters at Authentic Sound brings receipts with primary sources and other evidence that classical composers did not intend hand-breaking impossible speeds. I'll link him in the bio. And now it's time for the treat I promised you. Since we've been talking about the Revolutionary Étude, I want to share with you my own arrangement of the Revolutionary Étude, except it's in C major instead of C minor. I've actually posted this before on several platforms, and I noticed something very interesting. Even though this is close to a whole beat interpretation, no one in the comments anywhere commented about it being slow. I think that's because this was essentially a new experience for everyone hearing it. The transformation from minor to major forced people to listen with new ears, the way they might have heard the original version 200 years ago. So sit back and enjoy spending time with this music. Music is worth spending time with and reflecting on. It's not a race. It's communication, expression, and sharing. If you want to learn to make music at the piano yourself, please check out the courses available on my website. I'll link it in the description. Take care.